Welcome to Killer Now. In today's video, we will analyze the case of Andrea Yates, a story that marked Houston, Texas, and still sparks controversy to this day. Let's open the case file. Andrea Pia Kennedy was born on July 2, 1964, in Houston, Texas, the youngest of 5 children in a family, with German and Irish roots. During her youth, Andrea excelled academically, becoming class valedictorian and captain of the swim team at Milby High School, where she graduated in 1982. She also suffered from bulimia and depression during her teenage years, early signs of the mental health issues that would affect her later. After completing her nursing studies at the University of Texas, Andrea worked as a registered nurse at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston for 8 years. In 1989, she met Russell "Rusty" Yates, a NASA engineer, whom she married in April 1993. The couple shared strong religious beliefs and followed the teachings of preacher Peter Warrenecki, who emphasized large families and strict discipline. Between 1994 and 2000, Andrea gave birth to 5 children: Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. Following the birth of her 4th child in 1999, Andrea began showing serious signs of postpartum depression and psychosis, attempting suicide and being hospitalized multiple times. Her condition worsened after the birth of Mary in 2000 and her father's death in 2001. Despite medical warnings against having more children and recommendations for constant supervision, on June 20, 2001, her name would make headlines for a tragic reason. On the morning of June 20th, 2001, an unimaginable tragedy unfolded in the Yates family home in Clear Lake, a suburb of Houston, Texas. After her husband Russell left for work at NASA around 9 a.m., Andrea Yates methodically filled the bathtub with water and, one by one, drowned her 5 children. She began with her youngest children, starting with 6-month-old Mary, followed by 2-year-old Luke, 3-year-old Paul, and 5-year-old John. When her oldest son, 7-year-old Noah, walked into the bathroom and saw his sister floating in the water, he asked, "What's wrong with Mary?" Before he could escape, Andrea caught him and drowned him last. After the killings, Yates carefully laid the bodies of her 4 youngest children on her bed, with Mary placed in John's arms. She left Noah floating in the bathtub. Then, with a chilling composure, she called the police and her husband. When officers arrived, she calmly led them to the bedroom where 4 of the children lay and to the bathroom where Noah remained. The brutality and methodical nature of the crime shocked Houston and the entire nation, particularly because it had been committed by a mother who, by all accounts, had previously been devoted to her children. Unlike many high-profile murder cases, Andrea Yates never attempted to conceal her actions or create an alibi for what occurred on June 20, 2001. Within minutes of drowning her 5 children, she made 2 crucial phone calls. First to emergency services at 9:48 a.m., requesting police to come to her home, and then to her husband Russell, telling him he needed to come home immediately. When the first officer arrived at the scene, Yates answered the door still wet from the drownings. She let him through the house to show him what she had done, making no attempt to hide the children's bodies or fabricate a story about their deaths. When asked what was wrong, she simply stated, "I killed my kids." During initial police questioning, Yates was described as flat and emotionless. She explained her actions with disturbing clarity, telling investigators she had been thinking about killing the children for some time. She believed they were not developing correctly, and that by killing them, she would save them from eternal damnation. Rather than constructing an alibi, Yates immediately confessed to the murders, later explaining to psychiatrists that she believed her children were doomed to perish in hellfire because of her own inadequacies as a mother, and that their deaths were necessary to save their souls. The police investigation into the Yates case began immediately after Andrea's 911 call on June 20th, 2001. When officers arrived at the family's suburban home in Clear Lake, they found a crime scene that required little traditional detective work. There was no mystery about who had committed the acts. Andrea Yates had already confessed. The focus of the investigation quickly shifted from determining who had committed the crimes to understanding why they had occurred. Forensic teams documented the bathroom where the drownings took place and the bedroom where 4 of the children had been carefully arranged. Medical examiners confirmed drowning as the cause of death for all 5 children. What puzzled investigators most was Andrea's calm demeanor. She cooperated fully with authorities, answering questions plainly and without emotion. This behavior led investigators to dig deeper into her medical history, uncovering a troubling pattern of severe mental illness. Detectives interviewed Russell Yates, who revealed his wife's extensive psychiatric history, including multiple hospitalizations for postpartum psychosis and depression. Medical records showed Andrea had been prescribed antipsychotic medications that she had stopped taking shortly before the murders. Records also revealed that just 2 days before the killings, Andrea had seen her psychiatrist, who had reduced her medication despite her deteriorating condition. The investigation ultimately centered not on who or how, but on Andrea's mental state, setting the stage for what would become a landmark case in the legal treatment of mental illness. The Andrea Yates case immediately captured national headlines, becoming one of the most widely discussed criminal cases of 2001. News outlets across America broadcast images of the modest suburban home where the tragedy occurred, juxtaposed with family photos showing Andrea as a seemingly devoted mother, surrounded by her 5 smiling children. Public opinion fractured dramatically. Some viewed Yates as a cold-blooded murderer who deserved the harshest punishment, while others saw her as a severely mentally ill woman failed by both the healthcare system and her husband. The revelation of her extensive psychiatric history and multiple suicide attempts shifted the conversation toward mental health awareness, particularly postpartum depression and psychosis. Religious communities debated the role that extreme religious beliefs might have played in her delusions. Mental health advocates pointed to the case as evidence of inadequate treatment protocols, while prosecutors maintained that regardless of her mental state, justice for 5 innocent children demanded severe consequences. The stark contrast between Andrea's former life as a valedictorian, successful nurse, and attentive mother against the horrific nature of her actions made the case particularly haunting for the public. Media coverage highlighted how someone who appeared normal on the surface could harbor such severe mental illness, raising uncomfortable questions about how many other mothers might be silently suffering. As the case moved toward trial, advocacy groups for postpartum disorders began using the Yates tragedy to push for better screening, awareness, and treatment options, permanently altering public discourse around maternal mental health in America. In February 2002, Andrea Yates's first trial began in Houston, Texas. The prosecution, led by Harris County District Attorney Chuck Rosenthal, charged her with capital murder for 3 of the 5 children's deaths. Despite her well-documented history of mental illness, prosecutors sought the death penalty, arguing that Yates knew right from wrong when she methodically drowned her children. The prosecution's case relied heavily on testimony from psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz, who claimed Yates was sane at the time of the killings. Dietz controversially testified that Yates had been influenced by an episode of the television show Law and Order, featuring a woman who drowned her children and was found not guilty by reason of insanity, an episode that was later proven never to have existed. The defense, led by attorneys George Parnham and Wendell Odom, entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. They presented extensive evidence of Yates's severe mental illness, including postpartum psychosis and schizophrenia. Defense psychiatrists testified that Yates truly believed she was saving her children from eternal damnation by killing them, convincing herself that Satan had marked her and that her children would suffer in hell because of her inadequate parenting. On March 12, 2002, after 3.5 hours of deliberation, the jury rejected the insanity defense and found Yates guilty of capital murder. Days later, the same jury spared her from the death penalty, instead sentencing her to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 40 years. In 2005, Yates's conviction was overturned by an appeals court due to the false testimony about the Law and Order episode. A second trial began in June 2006, with substantially similar evidence presented by both sides. This time, on July 26, 2006, the jury found Andrea Yates not guilty by reason of insanity. She was committed to the North Texas State Hospital, a maximum security mental health facility, where she continues to receive treatment today. The case became a landmark in the legal treatment of postpartum psychosis and helped reshape public understanding of severe maternal mental illness in America. The Andrea Yates case permanently altered America's understanding of postpartum mental illness and its potential consequences. Following her acquittal by reason of insanity in 2006, Yates was committed to Kerrville State Hospital in Texas, where she remains today. Though eligible for annual release hearings, she has consistently waived her right to these reviews, choosing to stay in psychiatric care. The tragedy prompted significant legal and medical reforms. In 2003, Texas passed the Andrea Yates Bill, requiring healthcare providers to give new mothers information about postpartum depression resources. The Yates Children Memorial Fund was established to increase awareness and education about postpartum mental illness. Russell Yates, who initially stood by Andrea, divorced her in 2005 and remarried the following year. He faced intense public criticism for ignoring medical advice against having more children and for leaving Andrea alone despite warnings from her doctors. For the psychiatric community, the case highlighted critical failures in recognizing and treating severe postpartum disorders. Medical schools and healthcare systems implemented improved screening protocols, and public awareness campaigns helped reduce stigma around maternal mental health issues. 2 decades later, the Yates case remains one of America's most infamous family tragedies, a cautionary tale about the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness. The images of 5 innocent children and their mentally ill mother continue to haunt the public consciousness, serving as a somber reminder of a system that failed an entire family with catastrophic results. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave your opinion about this case in the comments.